the Books of the Month. I'm your host, Dr. Larry Carnes. We're excited to have you with us, and we have as a special guest today, Sandy Burrell. He's the author of this awesome book, Seed Time, an inspirational book for the youth. Sandy, welcome, 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 and thank you for joining us today. How are you?
All right, thanks for having me.
Yes. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay.
Excellent. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Let the viewing audience know who you are. Tell us about Sandy.
Well, as I stated in the book, I'm in the Verger ministry at my church. I live in the New York City area, and when I'm not at church, I'm at my job and doing a full-time job as a machine operator. And my mentor asked me to write a book for the youth, and here I am writing a book for the youth.
Okay. Your mentor asked you to write a book for the youth. You said when you're not at work, you're doing your full-time job. You're a machine operator. What type of machinery do you operate?
Well, I'm a machine operator that assembles parts for construction purposes.
Okay. All right. So you're in construction.
Some degree, yes.
Okay. Awesome. So now let's talk about this powerful book, Seed Time, an inspirational book for the youth. What was your motivation? I know you said your mentor encouraged you to write a book. You're involved at the church. What was your motivation for targeting youth? And is there anything in your life, in your background, that would inspire you to target youth and write this book?
Well, at my church, I run the Acolyte ministry there, and I deal with a lot of youth in that perspective.
Okay.
Here and there, I know it's down the church, there's no leadership programs there, but they always keep asking me to take on other roles, leadership-wise, in the church, and I said to myself, well, do something that helps the youth grow to that point also. So that's where that part came from.
Okay. All right. Now, I noticed in the book, as I was looking here, some interesting chapters. Chapter 1 deals with calling. Chapter 2 deals with play to your strength. Chapter 3 talked about crisis mode. And then I looked at chapter 5, crisis mode. And then chapter 7 said message to parents. Let's go back to chapter 1. Chapter 1 says calling. Speak to us about calling and what inspired that chapter.
Well, in the church, I was called to the ministry of Vergers in 2006. So calling in the church aspect means a call to serve for what I deal with. So when I was talking to my protege about calling, that was the basis for that. And then I said to myself, when I wrote that chapter, the first thing I wanted to do was tackle any reasons why you wouldn't want to do something. So give up any inadequacies about why you think you can't do something, and then push yourself forward to fulfill that mission of what you had to do.
Okay. Heard you say something here. Tackle the inadequacies that you might feel that communicate to you that you can't do something. Push through that and realize that you can do something. What would be a stepping stone, if you would, that you would share with our viewing audience how they can overcome that feeling of not being adequate, telling them that they can't do something? What would be a stepping stone to be successful in moving forward?
Well, for starters, recognize what is the issue at hand first, and then when you understand what the issue is, do some problem solving in terms of what you could do to correct that so you could get past it and move forward.
Wow, powerful. Recognize the issue. Once you recognize, do some problem solving to find out what you can do to correct the issue. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
So identification, and then doing some analyses to find out what you can do to correct that issue. That's very, very powerful. So talk to me about this now, Sandy, if you will. With calling and the youth in the church, because I hear you keep talking about the youth in the church and the organization, the ministry that you're involved in. How are you making the youth aware of a calling and how they can recognize that they have a calling?
Well, similar to like in the Bible with when the call of Samuel, where he didn't recognize at first when he's being called, Eli said, "This is how you answer God in terms of receiving the calling." Something along those lines where you look at, well, let's put it this way. When I was called to ministry of vergers, it was okay, what is that? And then when I understood what that ministry was and how I fit into it, then I was able to accept the calling and fulfill being part of it.
Okay. Now, let's stop right there. The ministry of vergers. I heard you reference it on 2 or 3 occasions. Explain to us and to the viewing audience, what is that ministry? What is the ministry of vergers?
Okay, that's a ministry that's exclusive to the Episcopal Church. Now, if I said a priest or a bishop, you have an idea what that is. Now, vergers are exclusive to the Episcopal Church, and it has its basis back in medieval times. So, you've seen the Catholic Church, you see the cross processions, and you see in some situations where in the cathedral you see a dark figure walk around with the staff, leading the procession or escorting people around that read or participate in the services. Perfect example, you probably seen John McCain's memorial service at National Cathedral recently. And you've seen guys walking around with staffs that either escorted people to speak or help people during the service or led processions.
Okay.
So the preacher would carry a staff. Richard was a mace. And if anybody got in the way, it was their job to get them out of the way because you protect the procession. Now, that was medieval times. Now, the staff that we use now is more pleasant. It's not a mace, it's just a symbolic reminder of that.
So, is it a serving ministry that you're talking about that you're actively in and you're helping the youth there in the church?
Right.
Okay.
So you act like you're assistant priest or whatever capacity you need, pretty much.
Okay. Talk to me now about, let's look at chapter 3. Chapter 3 speaks of play to your strength. You have a calling. You're going to play to your strength. Unpack that for us and share with the viewing audience. What does that mean? Play to your strength.
Okay, and so it's nice you brought that up because the 3rd chapter is the book into the 1st chapter. So continuing from recognizing where you're at fault and knowing what you need help with, the 3rd chapter is about team building. So recognize where you're lacking and then assemble a team to help you cover the fact that you need this help to get the job done and whatever you're trying to do and accomplish.
Playing to your strength. You mentioned team building. So recognize what you have the ability to do. And if I understand you correctly, that which you don't have the ability to do, understand the power and the strength that's in the team, and then afford other members of the team to use their strengths. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Give us some examples of how you've taught the youth to do this and to implement this ideology that you're sharing with us, recognizing their strength and then allowing other members of the team to recognize their strength.
Well, with the group that I deal with, we're always relying on each other to help each other out because the Acolyte ministry is all about supporting the priest during the service. So, along with supporting the priest, we also working with each other to help the priest realize what they need to get done during the order of the service at that time. So,
Okay.
The team building is along the lines of you help each other out, but okay, it's like a jigsaw puzzle for figuring out where things fit to get it done.
Okay. So now I see an inspirational book for the youth. If I'm inspiring the youth, I want to motivate and encourage the youth. How does the youth apply this to their lives individually and collectively for it to be inspirational to them? What's the inspiration, and what are they being inspired to do?
Okay. Well, the book is a leadership book, so the first half of the book is about leadership. Then the second half of the book is self-help stuff and miscellaneous stuff that what I just thought about just putting there based on conversations I had with kids prior to writing the book. So when it comes to the self-help part is general stuff that you're probably dealing with here and there and overcoming whatever issue you have. That's not leadership based, it's just personal issues that part might face on a daily basis.
Okay.
So,
Steps to overcoming personal issues. Very, very, very important. You know, when you're dealing with youth and this generation, this emerging generation, and some of the obstacles, some of the challenges, what would be some self-help steps that they could employ, if you would, apply to their lives to help them overcome some of the challenges that they're dealing with on a daily basis? You being there in New York, the inner city, what would be some self-help steps that you would encourage them, that you've taught them to incorporate into their lives?
One self-help tip I could think off the top of my head is stage fright.
Stage fright.
I deal with a number of kids that have stage fright, so
Okay.
top of the list. But on top of my head, stage fright, and then some of them in single parent homes are going to deal with that. Probably another book because I never said too much about that in this one. So yeah, sequel. But you know how it is, how you be down about something, people say you're not good enough because of blankety blank, and then I have a part in the 4th chapter, you know, and I talk about that. 4th chapter says, you know how it's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Okay.
You start bad, but in the end, you can work towards something good. Things along those nature, things along that nature.
Okay. You can start and it may be bad, but toward the end, it can end up into something good. So would that convey that a person may start out on one path, but because of the assignment that you have when you're helping these youth to recognize their calling, then you're helping them to play to their strength. I heard you mention these self-help steps. So in the process of them navigating this maze called life and learning how to survive as a youth and the environments that they're socialized in, the self-help things that you're teaching them will be things that will help foster them to a successful outcome. Would that be correct in what you're saying?
Yes, it is.
Okay, that's powerful. That's powerful. How much support do you get from the church? Because I see you mention the church a lot, and that's important. So how much support are you getting from the body, the team there at the church? How much support are you getting to help you do what you feel God has called you to do in this assignment with the youth?
It varies. I mean, the parents are very supportive of what I'm trying to do for their children. And here and there, the people that I help out, whether it's in my church or in other churches or other venues, has been also very supportive because they appreciate what I try to do for them and welcome whatever help I give them.
Interesting. You mentioned parents being on the sideline. So do you find that to be the norm, parents being on the sideline and not actively involved in things that are taking place with their children in that circle that you're in?
I don't know if that's the case. It's just a person want to make, I just personally with what I do, try to make it more inclusive for the parents.
Okay.
Groups it varies, so I can't speak for them, but for what I do, I like having that parent support and them feeling like they're not left out.
Oh, powerful, 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 powerful. So what are some things that you're doing, that you're implementing? I hear here we have chapter 5, crisis mode. So what are some things that you're implementing that will help the youth, the young people, and the parents deal with crisis mode? And speak to us about crisis mode and what that communicates.
Well, that chapter was very difficult to write because there was it was very emotional trying to get through that particular chapter. But in that chapter, it talks about suffering, grief, depression, whenever bad things happen. So my attitude was talk about it honestly, but not just say that it happens, because at any age you could experience some type of bad issues. So the goal of that chapter was not only to just bring it up, but to find ways to recognize what you're dealing with, have a way to try to talk to people about something that's bothering you without feeling embarrassed about it.
Yeah.
It's kind of awkward to talk about.
My. That's powerful. That's powerful. So depression, emotional, psychological challenges. Am I hearing you saying that young people have been trained to ostracize themselves and not deal with it, and that may be an area in the church that we need to deal with in order to be successful in helping our young people?
Possibly.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that it was very emotional for you to write this chapter. Share with us why it was so emotional for you to write this chapter.
Well, it was very draining emotionally because, as I stated, the first thing I did was talk about suffering and grief and depression. And at the time I was writing about grief, I was still dealing with two deaths in the family that happened in less than a year.
Okay.
Around that time. And the constant thing in my church is that they knew I lost two aunts, and they kept saying, "How'd you deal with it? How'd you deal with it?" So I took a moment, just addressed it, where I said I was okay. This is how I dealt with it, and I practiced what I preach in terms of how to face grief and things of that nature. But after I wrote the 5th chapter, which is deal with all those bad elements that you deal with, I stopped for a while. I took like a week breather to just pull myself together because it was just very draining emotionally.
Yes.
And after that, I was able to just keep going.
So you had personal investment in that because you had experienced it in your own life, some things that you were navigating through, the grief. Talk to me about the depression factor, because you hit that. See, one of the things that we haven't addressed inside the church is depression. You know, the mind, the will, the emotions, and how the traumatic impact of that plays into the lives of people. Speak to me about that. I've heard you mention depression. Talk to me about that, if you will.
I guess for personal experience, it's one of those things that you see it coming, but you don't really know how to speak to people about it, and it's kind of awkward talking about what's bothering you sometimes, so you don't really want to talk to certain people about it, just want to deal with it. But then when you shove it in by yourself and you don't really deal with it, it becomes worse. So you have to have a way where you just let it out, and you have a way to have somebody just able to support you to get through that situation you're dealing with.
That's powerful. I heard, and now see, I'm listening to you, and I'm sure our viewing audience is listening to you also. You must have a way out. You must have a way to release and to vent this thing, because if not, then am I hearing that you may possibly be institutionalizing yourself from an emotional perspective, psychological perspective, by keeping it in? Is that possible?
Yes, it's possible.
Okay. Now, so how have you taught the youth or navigated with the youth to deal with this thing and speak openly about it without feeling ashamed?
Well, I haven't had, I know some youth deal with depression. I haven't had a situation where I had to deal with somebody that had depression, but I did have situations where they had, someone came to me where they had uncomfortable thing they want to talk to me about, and they felt embarrassed about it, so I told them there's no boundaries, speak your mind, and we'll try and deal with it together as best we can. So I try to give that type of feeling for them, because it's hard to talk and it's hard to express if you're not really sure what's going on.
My.
So in speaking your mind, you can probably get to the root of it better and then figure out the best way to go moving forward.
My, powerful, powerful, powerful. Hard to talk if you don't really know what's going on. Talk to me about chapter 7. Talk to our viewing audience about chapter 7. Message to the parents. What does that convey? What is the message to the parents?
Well, that idea for that chapter came from when I deal with the group. I also try to include the parents. So I wrote the book geared toward the youth to grow, but also I had a parent section because I wanted the book to be something where the kids and the parents could sit there and talk to each other as a group. So the 7th chapter is a parent's version of the previous chapter. It's just a conclusion directed at the parents. And also I give a conversation about stuff you should probably talk to them about that maybe out of bounds for me to actually say personally. So that's why I try to do message to parents that, okay, I'll do what I can to teach a kid, but it's still up to you to raise your child.
My mind. So you're going to do what you can to assist and help the youth, to help their children, but still, I heard you say it's up to the parents. It's the parents' responsibility to raise the children. Is that what I heard you say?
Yes.
Now, I heard you mention communication. How valuable and important is it as you're conveying this message, as you're involved in the calling, teaching the youth how to play to their strength, and then the navigating through the crisis mode, the message to the parent, how important is it to have an effective line of communication with the youth, with the young people? How do you get that across?
Communication is an important period. When it comes to youth, they're bombarded with a lot of images for a variety of reasons. And you can't filter it. I mean, the information is so widespread at this point. You have to be able to help them grasp the right and wrong sooner than when I was growing up, because it wasn't internet when I was growing up, so we could hide stuff easier.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's just everything's just out there to the point where if you don't say something, they're gonna find out about it one way or another.
Wow. Wow. This is powerful. Now, let's do something. Share with us some information. How can people get this book, and how can they get in touch with you? In 1 minute, share that with us. How can they get this information? How can they order the book, and how can they get in touch with you?
The book is available not only with the publisher Zulon Press, but it's available at other bookstores like Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Better World Books, Christian Book, Thrift Books, Walmart. And there's also an ebook version of it on Kindle, Nook, Apple iBooks. The company there's a company putting together a website for me coming up soon.
Okay.
That stuff listed also.
Excellent. Do you have an email address or where people can get in touch with you if they needed to contact you, if they might be interested in you coming in?
Yes, I do.
Give us that email address.
The letter S, R, Burrell at yahoo.com. So letter S, letter R, my last name Burrell at yahoo.com.
SR Burrell at yahoo.com. That's powerful. I tell you, Sandy, it's a powerful, powerful instrument, a powerful tool. Seed Time, an inspirational book for the youth, authored by Sandy Burrell. You've seen him, you've heard his heart and how he's conveying, impacting, and transforming the lives of the youth. Listen, if you're interested in having him come in, remember that information, the email, get in touch with him. He's a valuable asset. He can help you. Listen, we're so glad that you could join us for this powerful, powerful episode of Books of the Month. I've been your host, Dr. Larry Carnes. We want to encourage you to continue to tune in next week because we're going to have another exciting and powerful program. Once again, Books of the Month. I'm your host, Dr. Larry Carnes. Be empowered, be encouraged, and join us again next week.